The first step in creating drawings in AutoCAD is to learn how to tell AutoCAD what you want to happen and how AutoCAD responds back to you. You will start by using an initial template file to establish the proper drawing measurement units, and then adjust some settings to control the input from you and the output from AutoCAD. You will also be adding to the tools you already know to begin drawing some geometry. Click on the new tool in the Quick Access toolbar and highlight the AutoCAD DWT file. Click on Open, and the new drawing appears. We could have saved a step if we had double-clicked with the left mouse button directly on the template file name. From now on, we will use the double-click method. The new drawing will automatically be given a generic title such as Drawing 1 or Drawing 2, depending on how many new drawings you create. It is useful to have unique names to drawings, but it is better to have names that describe what you might be drawing, such as Exercise 1 or Door 36. In this case, you'll save your first file as My First Setup by clicking on the Save tool in the Quick Access toolbar. The Save Drawing As dialog box appears, allowing you to select the location of your drawing file and the name of the file. If you haven't created a folder, you may want to do so. Move your cursor onto the list of files without highlighting any file names. Right-click, click on New, and Folder. Call this folder AutoCAD Train and press Enter. Double-click on the folder to open it. Now under File Name, enter My First Setup and press the Save. Now look at the top of the AutoCAD window. See that the location and the name of the new drawing are shown. AutoCAD remembers this so that the next time you click the Save tool, AutoCAD will automatically save the file to the proper location without any input from you. You should save often by clicking on the Save tool every few minutes. You never know when something may happen to the program or computer during a drawing session. You don't want to lose hours of work just by not clicking on the Save tool every so often. There is an autosave feature, but I find using the Save button gives you more control. To open an existing drawing to work on, click on the Open tool in the Quick Access toolbar. You'll notice that will show the location where you previously saved the My First Setup file. Don't bother with opening anything, just click on the Cancel button. Now let's establish some settings for this particular drawing. You'll have to do this whenever you start a new drawing. Later on, you'll learn some shortcuts. Remember, any changes you make to a drawing won't be saved until you hit the Save tool. Before we go any further, let's do a simple check to determine what template you use to start the drawing. To do this, we can check the available annotation scales by clicking on the 1:1 in the bottom right of the screen. You will see a list of possible scales for that drawing. An AutoCAD template has typical imperial architectural scales, such as 1/4 of an inch to a foot, while an AutoCAD isometric template does not. As a beginner, this is something you may want to check on at the start of each new drawing, just to make sure you have used the right template file. Hit Escape. Now we're going to adjust the units for this particular drawing. Click on the Application menu icon, move down to Drawing Utilities, click on it, click on Units. The Drawing Units dialog box is used to establish how AutoCAD expects you to enter numerical lengths, angles, and how it will give you numeric feedback. Let's review each setting. Under Length, we have the type. Clicking on it gives us access to a variety of different type of drawing units. Architectural, let's click on it. You'll see that it changed down here. Decimal, fractional. Let's set ours to decimal for this drawing. Below is the precision for the length values. What this means is that AutoCAD stores numerical values to at least 16 decimal places, but that would be a lot to see at any one time. So, to make things easier to read, you can set the feedback precision to a lower value. AutoCAD takes its high precision values and rounds them to display the shorter, less precision values. but in the background, it still retains the higher precision. For this drawing, we'll be creating, let's set the precision to 3 decimal places. Click, click. Across from length is angle type. As you can see, it's set to decimal degrees, which is typically what we'd use for most drawings. But click on it, and you can see we have other degree, minutes, seconds, grads, radians, surveyor units. Let's click on decimal. Below that is the precision for the angle. Click on that and set this to at least 2 decimal places. If we had left it on a 0 precision, sometimes when we're drawing we might be a half a degree out from an integer number. But if it automatically rounds to a single integer, we wouldn't know that. So let's keep that on 2 decimal places. We don't need to touch anything else that's automatically set up when we use the AutoCAD template file. Let's press OK to keep these settings. Next to set are the limits. AutoCAD can draw objects of any size, from microns, tiny distances, to parsecs, a very large distance. In AutoCAD, you typically draw objects in their full size. To help you get a handle on the size of objects in relation to each other, you can set limits of the area you want to draw within. The limits control where the drawing grid appears. The limits aren't fixed in any way, meaning you can change them at any time or not use them at all, but they can be useful for the beginner to be able to get a perspective on the size of the object they are drawing. To set the limits, start to type limits on the command line. L, I, M. You will notice that AutoCAD helps to fill in the command you're looking for. It doesn't matter if you type in capitals or lowercase. Hit Enter or the spacebar to start the limits command. The first set of numbers represents the lower left corner of a rectangular area. In our case, we want the lower left corner to be at -1 in the x-axis and -1 in the y. Notice how AutoCAD already has a default value of 0, 0. When AutoCAD presents you with options or values in the greater than and less than brackets, they are default or the last used. To use them again, just press Enter to accept them, but in this case, enter -1, -1 and press Enter. Now you're asked for the upper right corner of the rectangular area. Again, you can see that values have already been set in the brackets, but we don't want to use those values. An easy manner to determine what the upper right corner is to make the values slightly larger than what you intend to draw. In this case, it's an L shape that is 4 inches long and 2 inches high. So let's set the upper right limits to 5, 3. Remember, the x-axis is the horizontal and the y-axis is the vertical. You don't have to enter all the decimal places if they are 0. 5, 3, enter. One last step is to see the area covered by the limits. To best see the effect, the grid needs to be visible and governed by the limits. Click on the down arrow next to the snap toggle and click Snap Settings. Turn off the display grid beyond limits by clicking on the box next to it to uncheck it. Make sure the grid and the snap settings are on, then click the OK button. The grid should only cover the area of the limits. Let's set the limits to fill the screen. Move your cursor over to the navigation bar, click the down arrow, click on Zoom All. Zoom All zooms the screen so that the limits practically fill the screen. It never fits perfectly because of the numerous possible screen sizes. Now we're going to check the limits. We wouldn't normally have to do this, but I want you to see the limits visually so you can understand them better. Start the line command. Pick on the 0, 0 to start the line. That's the intersection of the green and red axis lines. This point represents absolute 0, 0. Move the cursor in a positive direction towards the right and observe the x distance in the dynamic input as you approach the far right. It won't be exactly 5 on ours because of the shape of our screen. With the command still active, move the cursor along the green line towards the top of the screen. Notice that the y distance is 3 for our screen. We did this to show you where your limits are. Hit Escape to abort the command. The last step to set up a drawing is to adjust the snap and grid for the particular object you are drawing. If it was an imperial floor plan, we might want to snap to be every 2 inches and the grid every foot. Click on the down arrow beside the snap. Click Snap Settings. Change the grid spacing to 1. Click in the Y, and you can see it automatically changes. Now we're going to change the major line every 1 line, so that there'll be only a major line every 1 inch. Now click on OK to save. Let's check the status bar to make sure the ones we want are on or in blue. Click and snap on. We set those earlier. Polar tracking should be on. Snapping to reference lines, on. Object snap, on. Click on the down arrow beside it to see the various object snaps that have been turned on. These are the most common ones that you'll want on. In our case, we have node turned on, but you really don't need it at this point. If yours is on, turn it off. Now click on the down arrow next to the object snap. Lastly is our coordinate readout. If you haven't done it already, you should turn on the coordinate readout. Remember, to do that, click on the customization button and make sure coordinates is turned on. Just going to click on the button again to close that. Because you've previously saved the file and given it a location and a file name, you can save your drawing progress now by just clicking on the Save tool in the Quick Access Tool menu. As mentioned earlier, use the Save command often to avoid losing your progress. You will use this setup procedure often as you begin different types of drawings. Each different drawing type, such as imperial, metric, architectural, or mechanical, have their differences in their setup. It's time for you to review the procedures for starting a new drawing file. I would suggest journaling in point form the steps to start a new drawing.